Hey guys, it's Kevin from Spiritus Systems, and today we're going to talk about the first part of the cold weather layering series, and that is on base layers. Before we dive into base layers, a little bit about my background. I was in the Marine Corps. I was also a wildland firefighter for the U.S. Forest Service, and I recently came from a company called Hill People Gear, where I spent a lot of time backpacking and hunting in the Rocky Mountains. Before we dive into base layers, I'd like to talk a little bit about my approach to layering, and that is I use a stackable system. This way I avoid, or better yet, eliminate the need to take off a layer just to put a different layer on and then put that original layer back on again. To me, that's a huge waste of time and efficiency. I want to be able to just shed a layer or add a layer as the weather conditions or activity level change. Future episodes, we're going to cover the wind layer, the insulation layer, the rain layer, and we'll also cover handwear and footwear, all as separate topics, as each of those have numerous considerations. So what is the base layer? The base layer is the layer that's closest to the skin, the next to skin layer. Its job is to insulate you, but a bigger role of the base layer is moisture management. So when you sweat or you get wet, the base layer will wick that moisture away from your skin and move it to the outer layer of the fabric where it has the chance to evaporate. It's important to not prohibit this process by putting on a vapor barrier such as like a rain jacket or a big puffy jacket. Time and time again, you'll see somebody start a cold hike and they'll have a big puffy jacket on, and not even 5 minutes into the hike, they have to stop, take their pack off, take their puffy jacket off because they're already starting to overheat and they're wasting everybody's time. As we go through this series, it's important to think about the base layer as the moisture management layer and to allow it to do its job. So that's something to keep in mind as we talk about base layers and through this whole process of layering. When shopping for a base layer, there are several different fabrics you'll have to consider. The first fabric we'll talk about, which I do not have up here because I don't use it, is cotton. Cotton does not insulate you when you're wet. There is a famous saying around cotton, and that is, cotton kills. They say that because the air pockets within the fabric quickly fill up with moisture, which prevents it from insulating you, which can lead to hypothermia, and that can lead to death if it's not taken care of. Do not consider 100% cotton as your base layer. It is a bad choice for cold weather. So the next material we'll talk about are synthetics. Synthetics are man-made materials such as nylon or polyester. This shirt here is polyester, as you can tell by looking at the tag on the shirt. It's always important to look at what the shirt is composed of and how much of this fabric or how much of that fabric is in the material. I use synthetics. Synthetics have some pros, and that is that they do a very good job at insulating when wet. They have excellent moisture wicking capabilities. They're very light and packable, so you can have an extra one in your bag and it's not going to take up very much space or weight. And they're generally the more affordable option of some of the other fabrics. But that being said, synthetics do have some negatives, and that is if you wear them for a very long time in the field, they can become stinky, even though some of the newer synthetics have antimicrobial properties. Another negative about synthetics is that if you have any probability of catching on fire, synthetic material will melt to your skin. So that's one thing to consider when choosing your base layer. So this first shirt here that we have is the Audi Gear Sun shirt. These are a newer style of shirts that you'll start to see on the market, and these are generally good for the summer, but this can take you into some of the shoulder seasons, especially when it's warmer during the day and then it cools down at night. Since it's synthetic, it'll dry quickly, so you're not going to be wet once the temps start to drop. And the thing about the sun shirts is that they have this hood. You can wear them underneath a boonie cap, and then you can have protection all around your face from the sun, or you can just wear it over a ball cap. It will provide a little bit of warmth around your ears too and prevent the wind from hitting you. And I have another shirt here. This one's also a synthetic made out of polyester. This one's very light. This one's from Beyond Clothing. So this one doesn't have a hood or a collar on it. So this is a good shirt or option to wear underneath a field shirt. So you're not stacking collars or having to tuck in a hood when you have to wear some kind of field shirt over this. So these do have their place, but usually if I'm going to be shedding down to just a base layer, I prefer to have a collar or a hood of some sort. But if you have to wear it underneath a field shirt, I prefer something of this style. So the next fabric we're going to cover is wool. Wool has been an outdoor fabric for quite some time, and we've come a long way from it being that itchy layer that most people used to think of when they thought of wool. Modern merino wool is actually very soft against the skin and really doesn't have any itch to it at all. Wool does have some pros, and that is that you can wear it for a very long time in the field without having to change it, and it won't get smelly and it won't get crusty. So that's probably people's biggest compliment about wool and having to wear it. Wool will also be very fire retardant. It's naturally flame resistant, so it will not melt to your skin if you are exposed to flame. Wool also does a pretty good job at insulating you when wet, but it will not do as good as synthetics. It will take much longer time to dry than synthetic, especially 100% wool. And the thing you have to take into account with wool is that you have to take very good care of it. You cannot just throw this into the dryer as it will shrink. You have to allow it to air dry. Another thing is that you have to dry it on a gentle cycle. Wool will generally be more dainty of a fabric than some of the others. With that being said, I do like wool. I do use wool very often. This one is a 100% merino wool layer from Smart Wool. You have the benefit of having the hood, so you can protect your ears from the cold and from the sun. In this guy, you have these little thumb holes here, so you can keep the top of your hands somewhat insulated when the temperatures start to drop. So my preference is actually to have a blend of usually about 90% wool, 10% synthetic. This one here from Stone Glacier is a very good option, and this one is 89% wool and 11% nylon. So the nylon blend allows it to dry a little bit quicker than the 100% wool. It still won't dry as quick as the 100% synthetic, but the other benefit of this is that it makes the fabric a little stronger. So you have less of a chance of it developing holes or tears when you have the synthetic material blended into it. And I think the 90%, 10% is a pretty good rule of thumb there. So this shirt also has a hood on it, which again allows you to have some insulation around your ears and protect you from the sun. But this one also has this large zipper on the front, which allows you to dump a lot of heat once you start building it up, when you start pushing. So this is a very cool shirt if you have to shed down to only this layer. The next shirt I'd like to talk about is the one that I'm wearing. This is the First Spear ACM Mid. So this is a little bit different, and it's not a blend. This one actually has polyester on the inside and then wool on the outside. So this one does a better job at drying even than the blend. So the polyester allows it to wick the moisture into this outer layer of the wool, and then it's allowed to dry. But the wool also provides some flame resistance if that's something that you're worried about. Now that we've talked about the different fabric choices that you have to make another choice, and that is going to be what fabric thickness you want to choose. When you're shopping for a base layer, they're usually going to break it down by lightweight, midweight, and heavyweight. Lightweight is a good option, such as like this Audi sun shirt for the summer months or the shoulder seasons where it's warm during the day and then it cools down at night. I usually never choose a heavyweight base layer as my next to skin layer. I always opt for something like a midweight. That way, if I have to shed all the way down to my base layer and it warms up during the day, I'm not getting overheated. I do have an example here of a heavyweight. This is an issued Marine Corps fleece right here. So some people will consider this a heavyweight base layer, and it kind of goes into the insulation realm of a light insulator. The reason I don't choose this as my next to skin layer is that it may heat up during the day, and I don't want to have to shed down to only this and overheat when I start pushing hard. So that way, even when it gets really cold outside, the mid layer or the midweight is generally the layer that I have next to my skin. Now you can use this in conjunction with some of these other layers, like a lightweight or a midweight layer, especially if you're going to sleep at night. This is a good good size or a good weight to have, in your sleeping bag. Another thing to consider about, the weight options is if you have something that's super lightweight, like in wool, like this is a great shirt from Kuyu. This is a merino wool shirt, a wool blend. It's mid-weight fabric, in the front and back panel, but on the side panels, it is a lightweight wool layer, but it's also perforated, and their idea is that this allows you to dump some extra heat built up by your core. But the problem you can see with that is that wool is dainty, and especially this style right here, and I've already started to develop a hole right there. So lightweight when it comes to wool can be a problem, but you generally won't have as big a problem when it comes to like a synthetic of being lightweight and not being durable. So keep in mind, every manufacturer is going to have a different idea of what lightweight is or what midweight is or what heavyweight is. They're all going to be a little bit different thicknesses, or you might have to deal with something where it's light on the sides and thicker in the front and back panels. So just keep that in mind when you're shopping for the type of base layer that you want. So the next thing we're going to talk about are base layer bottoms. And base layer bottoms are something that I avoided wearing for a very long time because they become a nuisance, really. You think it's cold in the morning, you want to wear the base layer bottoms, but then the activity level starts to increase or the weather starts to get warmer during the day, and now you're stuck in a situation where you either have to suffer the consequences of wearing the base layer bottoms and being overheated, or you're going to have to take your boots off in the snow and do this dance while taking the base layer bottoms off. A recent development in base layer technology is zippers. So these are Kuyu wool base layers, and the great thing about these is that they have a zipper that runs all the way down. So this prevents you from having to take your boots off just to take your base layer bottoms off. And then you can put the base layer on without having to take your boots off either. So you have the option of taking these on or off, or of putting these on or off, and not having to take the risk of getting your feet wet or taking up the time necessary to change for the conditions. So you can take these off in generally under a minute. Putting them on is a little bit more difficult, as you have to take these all the way apart and then figure out which is the front and which is the back. So with that being said, it's still not that bad. It's still less time consuming than taking off your boots altogether. These ones are also 3/4 length, so they don't go all the way down to your ankles. This is meant to save weight and bulk, and it's meant to just kind of meet up with your sock at the bottom. It's kind of weird when you're wearing it just alone without socks, but when you're wearing it with socks, I generally prefer the 3/4 length there. So wearing base layer bottoms are not the extreme commitment that they used to be. So all you have to do is just drop your pants and then zip them off, and then you're ready to go again. I generally always wear boxer briefs regardless if I'm wearing base layer bottoms or not. The boxer briefs that I've been using are these woolen prints, 90% or 75% wool and 25% synthetic. So you can wear these longer in the field without them getting nasty, and you still retain some of those flame resistant properties if you are in that kind of environment. The one downside about these is that they can be cost prohibitive, even though I think they're well worth to have a few of these for your field equipment. If there's a brand of boxer briefs that you prefer, leave a comment in the comment section so we can all learn and figure out what is the best underwear to wear in the field. So that kind of sums it up about the different options you can choose for a base layer. I will say that it is a good idea to go to a store and try some of these on, or if you have a friend that has some of these different types of base layers that'll let you borrow them and use them in the field, that's a good idea before you make a purchase. So as a reminder, the base layer is going to be the first layer in the stackable layering system. It's going to be the layer that is next to your skin. In the future episode, we're going to talk about the wind layer and how I think the wind layer is supposed to be worn over the base layer. There are a lot of misconceptions about the wind layer, and we're going to break those down. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.